Shakespeare's work has a universal appeal that few authors can rival. His great characters, from Romeo and Juliet to Hamlet, Othello and Macbeth, grapple with what it means to be human. Their problems are our problems. Love, hate, jealousy, ambition, betrayal, doubt. All are instantly recognizable to contemporary audiences. But despite the universality of his themes, Shakespeare was of an age. We'll set out to do just that as we explore the events of 1599, a milestone in English history as well as in Shakespeare's own life. London's playhouses weren't just cultural landmarks, they were also businesses. In 1599, entrepreneurs hoping to cash in on Londoners' love of the stage invested heavily in new theatres. The Admiral's men moved into a purpose-built theatre called the Fortune, just outside the city gates. Other venues, like the Boar's Head, appeared in the eastern suburbs. The Lord Chamberlain's men lacked a permanent playhouse. Faced with tighter competition than ever before, Shakespeare and his fellow actor-shareholders took a risk and decided to put their own money toward building a new home, the Globe. Half of the cost of building it, around £700, was covered by two entrepreneurial brothers, Richard and Cuthbert Burbage. The other half was covered by Shakespeare and 4 other actor-shareholders, who each stumped up £70. This was a considerable sum. To put it into perspective, a freelance dramatist received about £6 for a play, while a day labourer was lucky if he made more than £10 in a year. So why did Shakespeare and his colleagues take this risk? Well, if the Globe prospered, they would too. Unlike the actor-shareholders of other companies, they'd each have a 10% stake in the theatre's future profits. Given Londoners' insatiable appetite for the stage, that could mean as much as £100 a year per stakeholder, an income large enough to secure their place in the well-to-do middle class. Shakespeare visited his wife and children in Stratford about once a year. He didn't return in the guise of a bard. He came as a savvy investor and man of considerable wealth. Even before his investment in the Globe in 1599, Shakespeare appears to have been financially secure. In 1597, for example, he bought a large Stratford house called New Place, boasting 10 rooms, 3 stories, 2 gardens, 2 orchards, and 2 barns. It cost him £120. Shakespeare then made another investment, buying 80 bushels of malt. This was an expensive commodity that was only profitable when bought in bulk. When he made his purchase, malt was in short supply. This shortage was so severe that the government tried to force people like Shakespeare to sell it on the open market, and thus prevent popular discontent. Having kept the grain off the market and helped drive up the price, Shakespeare sold his malt at a handsome profit. His work pleased audiences and sold well, albeit usually in anonymous volumes. By the end of the year, that had changed. His name was now a draw in itself. One entrepreneur even collected his poems in a book padded out with knockoffs by lesser poets. It sold out within days. Shakespeare's contemporaries also noticed this growing popularity, mocking the young men who searched Shakespeare's work for pickup lines, and from whose lips doth flow naught but Juliet and Romeo. He was now a recognised brand. The Globe was critical to Shakespeare's success. Other companies realised that they too had to change to keep up with the Chamberlain's men. The Admiral's men even hired the builder who had overseen the Globe's construction to build their new playhouse. When it opened, it also featured a programme that couldn't be found anywhere else in the city. Shakespeare was now 35, halfway through what the Italian poet Dante called the journey of life. He'd written and collaborated in the writing of over 20 dramatic works, averaging 2 plays a year. Looking back over the year at Christmas time, Shakespeare may have felt that his artistic reputation and financial position were now secure enough to slow down a little. At any rate, he wrote just 2 plays, Twelfth Night and Troilus and Cressida, between early 1600 and the death of Queen Elizabeth in the spring of 1603. In his final years, he he added 3 great tragedies to his life's work: King Lear, Macbeth, and Antony and Cleopatra. Shakespeare died prematurely at the age of 52 in 1616. The Elizabethan world to which he belonged was quickly extinguished. England was soon plunged into a brutal civil war, bringing hardline Puritans into power. One of their first acts was to close London's theatres and pull down the globe.